We promised you drama. The race delivered. I don't think I like watching bike racing very much, to be perfectly honest.
Come on, it's brilliant. Where are you going to get a free adrenaline rush like that?
Plays havoc with me. That was horrific, wasn't it? I mean, it was wonderful. And what a win for Fabio Jacobson on his Tour de France debut, taking all that pressure that everything before the race will have brought to him, Adam, and just delivering on the line.
I mean, only just delivering.
Yeah.
Only just delivering. He came out of nowhere at the last minute. He was fighting with Sagan at 300 metres to go, and you could see them just bumping. He found a little bit of room, but it was the last 25 metres he nipped through there. We can see the last K here. It's messy, it's fighty. Everyone's wanting to be on lead-out trains, waiting for that left-hand corner that goes round to left. There was another incident there. I think the Tour de France is... It's not a different level of sprinting, but it's just the drama within it. Everyone's fighting. There's so much on the line that everyone's willing to go right to the line for it. Crash, don't crash. As you said yesterday, Robbie, bin it or win it.
Yeah, exactly. But they're willing to take many more risks compared to other races. The level of intensity is that much more, and you've got all the best sprinters here going shoulder to shoulder. And you know, we saw all the way in the fights that were happening. We saw Sagan leaning against Jacobson, but I thought an excellent job, of course, done by Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl. Yves Lampaert was on the ground with 20k to go. He got back and did his job. Murku did his. But the best lead-out, in fact, actually came from Jasper Stuyven for Mads Pedersen for Trek Segafredo. They got to the front, and as Pedersen stepped off the wheel, it was looking good, and looking good for a free lead-out for Wout van Aert there in green. But just look behind in the wheel of Van Aert. There is Fabio Jacobson. He sees the light of day on the outside, straight around him, cleans him up. Pedersen third, Wout van Aert second. But Fabio Jacobson, I mean, he lived up to the favouritism tag.
Absolutely perfect timing.
You see him leaning on him and Sagan with about 200 metres to go, 150 metres. He was in the saddle like this, just leaning on each other. You can see there, just slowly, eventually Sagan giving up and being able to come round him. It was a brilliant sprint by him, but...
And a glance across from Sagan as well. I don't think he's used to having people pushing equally back and getting their own way in terms of positioning towards the end.
The days of dominating and the bunch sprint are over for him.
Well, the difference between the two was Jacobson had the power to keep going forward. Sagan was just defending where he was, and that's the difference between a guy who's going to win the stage and one who's going to finish sixth.
I was convinced it was Wout van Aert. That was just fantastic timing by Fabio Jacobson. Let's get some reaction from on the ground then. Here's Bradley Wiggins.
Ready, what a stage that was. Stage one of the Tour de France, and it was a win for Fabio Jacobson. What a return to form for him after the problems he's had the last few years. Wout van Aert second in that green jersey, so he's probably sealed some more points for that. There's Michael Morkov over there. What an amazing opening weekend for the Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl team. Yellow jersey yesterday, and we did see that yellow jersey on the floor just on the bridge there when the crash happened. So an amazing return back. We actually saw him doing the lead out in the final there. But a brilliant first stage here in Denmark, and the win for Fabio Jacobson.
Now, I'm conscious that it has been mentioned a little bit in commentary, but if you are tuning in to bike racing for the Tour de France and you don't know Fabio Jacobson's history, it is important to spell out just where he has come from on this comeback trail, Adam, because 2 years ago at the Tour of Poland, he had a terrible crash with Dylan Groenewegen where he ended up in an induced coma. He lost, I think, 10 teeth. He's had reconstructive surgery on his face. The injuries that he has sustained were horrific. We were delighted and relieved that he survived that. Few of us, I think, really believed he would be back riding a bike, never mind racing a bike, never mind making it to the Tour de France, never mind winning his first ever sprint stage. It is remarkable, physically and mentally, what he has done.
Truly incredible. I don't think there's any words that can really put it into perspective, what he has done, because it is incredible. I mean, being in an induced coma, not knowing really if you're going to live or not, and then being at the Tour de France 2 years later, winning the second stage in your first Tour de France, it's amazing. And let's not forget, when he got back on the bike, he was helping Mark Cavendish in the lead-out sprint in the Tour of Turkey when Cav started winning again. So the journey that he's been on and just keeps building through his career. He is, I'm not going to say he's starting his career now, but this is his biggest win, and it will mean so much more to him after everything he's been through.
It's just amazing to see him winning a stage of the Tour de France. I mean, you said all of that he went through in August or September of 2020 after that Tour of Poland crash. And like you said, we didn't expect him to maybe walk again. We were firstly hoping he would survive, then we didn't expect him to ride again or race. But even in those sprint lead-outs at the Tour of Turkey, he was kind of hovering towards the back, and you were sort of thinking, this might be that sad story of someone that just wants to try and get back, and he's never going to be his former self. The most remarkable thing for me is that he's still willing to go into those bunch sprints Robbie and Adam will tell you more than anybody else in the world how incredibly dangerous and hectic they are. I thought that just in his head that the thought of going through something similar again might prevent him from taking those risks, or at least dabbing the brakes more than most sprinters have to do. I don't know how he's found the mental fortitude to get back to where he is now, but he's obviously made of stronger stuff than most people.
And then he had the added pressure, of course, of taking the place of Mark Cavendish on the team. And we know that Cavendish has been watching today and he will have been cheering him on. He will be the loudest supporter of Fabio Jacobson today. But Jacobson has that pressure. And then the team in the final 10 kilometres coming over that bridge as well. You could write a novel as to all the drama that they delivered.
Yeah, there's so much drama with, as we saw, Yves Lampaert in the yellow jersey involved in a crash, fighting his way back on, along with lead-out man supreme Michael Murcu, getting themselves back, then getting things reorganised, lining up. They lost a rider, Seneschal, in that big crash just outside a kilometre to go. But they kept a cool head, and especially Fabio Jacobson, and even in the sprint itself, shoulder to shoulder with Peter Sagan, taking those risks. I mean, he's just wired differently, but he's wired just right for a Tour de France sprint.
You don't see many people like bashing on with Peter Sagan and him coming out better. It's always the other way around. Sagan will always win that battle, but as you said, just a little glance across to be like, oh, go on then, you go.
All right, you go then. What a remarkable sprint it was. What a remarkable win. Let's hear from the man himself, Fabio Jacobson.
Today is incroyable, as we would say in French. For me, it was a long process, step by step. A lot of people helped me along the way. This is to pay them back, so they can see that it was not for nothing. I'm happy I still enjoy riding the bike, racing, and luckily I can still win. Yeah, it's an amazing day, and I'd like to thank all the people that helped me to get to here.
Take us through that sprint. Pretty chaotic. There was a crash just before. Maybe you didn't notice it. Explain.
No, the team kept me in a good position in front when we exited from the bridge. It was a right-left combination, and then the final straight. I could stay behind Morkov. He dropped me off in the wheel of Van Aert, and then in the last few hundred meters I was a bit on the left. I was next to Sagan. We kind of touched each other, but luckily we stayed upright. And then it was a final stretch of 150 meters where I could launch and I could pass the other two. So yeah, I'm extremely happy to win. If I tell it like this, that it sounds easy, but for sure the legs were in pain. But this is what we train for. This is why we race, and yeah, a stage in the Tour de France. I've been dreaming about that for 15 years, I think.
Yeah, because we heard you say Tour de France, Tour de France. Yeah, it's the Tour de France.
Yeah, it's
symbolically, it's amazing.
It's the biggest race. As a sprinter, you want to make it to here and win. So I'd like to thank all the people in Denmark for cheering us on. And I hope everybody at home enjoyed watching and also here on the race.
See you tomorrow.
Thank you very much.
Oh, we certainly did, Fabio. Thank you for the show. And it was lovely to see, actually, him and Peter Sagan kiss and make up, essentially, at the end, wasn't it, Dan? I think there are no hard feelings there.
No, I mean, these things happen in sprints, and more often than not, you'll get one person that gives way a bit more and they win less. You know, it's the people that don't give way, that have full confidence, like, no, this is my spot, I'm going to sprint from here. You get back in your place. And like I said before, it didn't happen to Sagan very much because he's just such a supreme bike handler, more confident than most people in the peloton. But we can see how confident Jacobson is, and that's shown in the number of wins he's already got this year.
I have to say, he didn't look that shocked then.
Who?
Jacobson. He didn't look
I don't think he would be shocked, would he?
No,
he was a
like
favourite.
Yeah, but like shocked with his win. I know it's the Tour de France, but he seemed really cool about it. He's like, yeah, it's the Tour de France, man. I've just won a stage. It's really good. I'm super happy about it. But I knew it was going to happen. I'd expected him to be a bit more like Lampaert yesterday, you know, even though he's the favourite, just a bit more like, I've won!
It's called self-belief.
Yeah, absolutely. But also, as we were saying, though, coming in with that pressure means he's had to accept that he has to win. You know, I guess he's got that in his head already. Absolutely. Yeah. Not winning would have been the disappointment, the shock, maybe. And we've been talking about Yves Lampaert, and we've been talking about this horrific crash on that bridge that we have been building up to. Let's have a little look through it, Robbie. Talk us through this.
Well, yeah, we didn't see the actual tumble itself, but we might do. But Yves Lampaert, he was just behind it. Others went down in front of him. Alberto Dainese, he got catapulted off his bike when the EF rider tangled up in his back wheel. Yves Lampaert just behind that, and here it comes. So as you see them go down, you'll see in the black Dainese, and there's Lampard. He sees it, he hits it, he tries to step off and stay on his feet. But of course, when you're going 40 kilometres an hour, there's only a bloke called Usain Bolt who can run that quick. And Yves Lampard definitely not going to do that in bike shoes. So, he's gone over the top, but he's put a foot down first. He hasn't gone down too heavily, fortunately, and he was able to grab his bike without damage really quickly, regain.
The strangest part of this
and
is how quickly Guerrero in the pink there removed his helmet and threw it on the floor. It's almost like he had a bee in there or something. I don't know quite why he did it.
A bee in his bonnet.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, fantastically and phenomenally, they made it back and they were in the business end of the race, but that wasn't the last of the crashes to involve the team. I don't know if we can show this to you now, but the one later on in the bridge that took down Seneschal and a whole lot of others as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was always going to happen, whether it was full-on crosswind, full-on tailwind or full-on headwind. The thing is with a full-on headwind like that is it's just so much easier to sit in the wheels behind, and therefore everyone's that bit closer. Everyone's got that much more energy to try and move up when they want to or when there's space on the side. So it's almost inevitable, unfortunately, on a run into a sprint on the opening road stage of a Grand Tour that you're going to get incidents like that.
Here's the squeeze. I mean, there was a couple in that run in, but it was actually in the last 2 kilometres and someone trying to join the party very late, party crasher. But that was on the section off the bridge. There was that right-left combination of turns, and then the road narrowed down with the barrier set up. But it was just someone swung across to one side. There was a big squeeze on nowhere to go, and then they came down. But it took a lot of riders out of contention. But all the big-name sprinters who we expected to be in the mix to win the stage survived it. They were in front of it. They didn't even notice it, most of them, and they were able to battle it out amongst themselves.
What we don't have at the moment is a full list of any of the GC riders who might have been taken down in that. Obviously, they will finish with the same time because it was within the last 3 kilometres, but any kind of bumps or bruises at this stage will not be good, Adam. We did see Pogačar rolling in fairly late. He seemed to have a double puncture. Don't know if he
with a smile on his face again. No, he was rolling with a smile on his face, so he's fine. There's one rider I did notice, and that was Danny Martinez from Ineos. He was right at the top of the shot, and he was sort of bending down and checking himself. We can't speculate if they're injured too much, but as you said, even the time gap's fine, but it's the bumps, the bruises, it's the next day when you wake up. We don't know who's exactly crashed and how bad the injuries are. Hopefully everyone's finished, but it's always the next day when you wake up and be like, oh, my bum.
And it's always a couple of days later, or the first rest day, second rest day, when the teams start to refer back to that crash that we've all forgotten by that stage on stage 2 that is to justify a rider having to leave the tour early.
Yeah, and it all takes energy out of your body. The extra energy used to recover, or to patch over your skin, grow new skin, whatever it might be. It's all accumulative over the course of a 3-week race. So of course, you don't want to crash. You don't want to have a bad night's sleep and be stuck to the sheets at night. But it's part and parcel of it. I mean, I'm just relieved that there wasn't anything worse today. I think, although we've just looked at some fairly bad crashes, I think that was the least we could have expected from a stage like today. So I'm pleased that there was nothing worse, because there easily could have been today.
And at least they've not got stressful stages coming up after this. They can ease themselves back into it. A few more days for the cobbles, they'll be fine.
They've got a massage coming up on stage 5 across the cobbles.
Exactly, perfect.
We will talk about the new yellow jersey in just a moment. Wout van Aert, who's taken that, but we've got a very popular new polka dot jersey wearer, don't we? Magnus Cort. Doing it for the locals today, Robbie.
Yeah, the Dane Magnus Cort, first man on the attack, and he was joined out there by Bistrom, but he outgunned them on every climb. And, well, the 2 French riders, that was, I got to say, it was embarrassing. They battled to be in the break, and then as soon as they went over the first climb, they were jettisoned out the back. But Magnus Cort, he just went on and on over the climbs. There was a bit of a fight into that corner, but it's just so much more sprint power from Magnus Cort. He took all the available points on the KOMs, and I really liked when he got to the 3rd KOM of the day, he said, well, it's time to celebrate. I'm getting on the podium. I'm going to be in polka dot.
And why not? He's doing it for the home fans, and those fans just bring such joy to my heart. Seeing them all lined by the side of the road as if we were in Flanders. It was just beautiful to see. He's loving it. And rightly so. Congratulations, Magnus. We do have, Dan, some of his recovery data coming into today. I think you've had a quick look at this, have you?
Yes, so you can see he's in the yellow, but the recovery not quite as high as I might expect from him, given it was a fairly short day in terms of physical effort yesterday, even though it's a long day mentally hanging around for the time trial. But he had a decent night's sleep, and he was obviously up for today. It's his home country. He's very good on those short, steep climbs, so it was a perfect one for him. But, it'd be interesting to track his data with that whoop over the course of the 3 weeks, because it will fluctuate. And today was a hard day for him in the breakaway. I wouldn't be at all surprised to him go back in the breakaway again tomorrow to conserve his lead in the King of the Mountains competition and actually to build on it with the types of climbs we're going to have again in 24 hours' time.
Yeah, and also to give a bit more for the home fans to cheer. We've got another stage in Denmark to come. It'll be brilliant.
Speaking of fans, I mean, how good were they today as well? It was like one of the highlights watching them. And I think you pointed it out. Yeah, you definitely did. All I didn't. But it was how well behaved they were.
Yeah.
All of them. They never stepped out in the road. They're all behind the line.
Yeah.
It was brilliant to see.
Nobody with the cardboard sign in front of Jumbo-Visma, which was, that's a big win for them.
Yeah, the Danes are known to be quite reserved. It works well, I think, with bike racing. Not quite so reserved, though, in terms of behaviour from Stefan Kung. What was going on here with him grabbing Guerrero's helmet?
Well, I don't exactly know, to be honest. You can just see on the bottom right, you see the pink jersey from EF there, Stefan Kung behind him in the white. Now, watch this little incident here. The EF rider turns around and Stefan Kung sort of rides up next to him. They're obviously having a chat about something. Stefan Kung, at this point, decides to, I'm going to grab his helmet and sort of shake it a little bit. I don't know what he wanted to achieve, and I don't know what that was about. It was at a point where...
Maybe he saw the bee in his helmet earlier than Guerrero noticed it.
I think there was something that I saw from slightly earlier than that where there was already a bit of a kerfuffle between them. So we've only got the end part of it. There was a reason why Stefan Kung was angry in the first place. Almost looked like he'd pulled Kung's bike back. But, that's just the stress of the players on a stage like today where everyone is just fighting for every millimetre of the road. They don't want to give an inch at any point because it's so hard to move up, so hard to achieve your position. And so those things just happen. They could be teammates in a couple of years' time. They would be the absolute best of mates. But it is kind of...
It's an unusual one, though. We don't see that very often, do we?
That's the thing. That's the one they caught on camera today.
Yeah,
things like that happen throughout the day. There was probably 20 others we didn't see. There is a lot going on in the peloton, especially when it's stressful. Everyone's trying to ride at the front and ride aggressively. That happens just all day long.
Yeah, seemingly so. Well, a dramatic and exciting stage, just as we hoped for. We're going to look ahead to tomorrow after a quick break for our Eurosport viewers. If you're watching, though, on Discovery Plus or GCN Plus, then stay with us because we're only getting started. Well, there we go then. I want to talk about Wout van Aert because he was resplendent in green today. Looked like he was going to take that stage win in the end, but he's taken yellow. So a good day for them.
Yeah, I mean, very good day for them. I mean, I think out of that sprint, he'd have liked to be up there, and he was definitely up there. We expected him to be. But that first sprint he did where Caleb Ewan sprinted against, Caleb Ewan sailed past him, but he is so good at putting himself in the right position. He can do everything well, but that sprint today, how chaotic it was. He still had his lead-out man there, Laporte, but just putting himself into that position, knowing that the yellow jersey's up for grabs, he was so close to winning the stage, never mind just getting in yellow. But, I mean, we all know how good he is. What can you really say about him? It's not a big shock, whatever he does, because we know how capable he is, but you've just got to tip your hat to him for everything he does, because he does it excellently.
I'm slightly obsessed with looking at his results and how many single digits there are next to them.
We've not noticed that, Dan.
This year.
We've not noticed.
I think I need to work it out again, but certainly for the Dauphiné, like the warm-up race for the Tour de France, there was a point where I think about 75% of the days that he'd started this year racing, he'd been on the podium that day. And, of course, he's been second yesterday, second again today, so that percentage will be around about the same. It's an unbelievable level of consistency. Do you still prefer Van der Poel then, or not? As a rider to watch, yeah.
Yeah, all right.
We have this constant debate amongst our team as to which is our favourite, Wout van Aert or Mathieu van der Poel. We'll update you as we go. But the Tour de France is about bike racing, of course, but it's also about the scenery and about the tech. What did we think of the new helmets that we got to see yesterday, Robbie?
Horrible, horrific, frightful. I hope I never see them again.
Well, you did say at the start of today... Well, there you go. You hope to never see them again.
Do we have to?
I mean, it's not the sexiest look, shall I say, that we've ever seen in cycling. You did say at the start of today, Robbie, if you look good, then you go good. Let's have a little look.
And interestingly, it was the team of Yves Lampaert. They have those helmets with that snood, but Yves Lampaert chose last year's helmet without it, and he won. because he looked good and he felt good and he won and the others didn't.
Speaking of looking good,
Here's
some of Adam Bly's here's some of Adam Bly's style. Adam, looking good, feeling good. Do you remember your results from these very impressive sartorial and visual days?
No, I do
DNF
not at all. I know.
was one.
Can someone send me that bottom right picture? My bum looked excellent then.
And the other one was a crit before the British Nationals in 2011. Don't know where you finished there, no?
No
in
Newcastle.
Idea.
No idea.
Anyway, you stand by those choices?
Yes,
those looks?
100%. Yeah, definitely. Thanks very much.
You're very welcome. It's all about the look. Let's chat about RGC then. We're going to give you a quick update as soon as we can of the standings at the end of today. We know that Pogačar, of course, has rolled in with double puncture, but he won't have lost any time, at least. Hopefully, we can bring you that top 10 in just a moment. We're about to welcome back our television viewers in a moment, so we'll do that in just a little second. So welcome back to our Eurosport viewers. We've been building up to the Great Belt Bridge since the start of this tour. It didn't disappoint with stunning scenes and dramatic race action. Dan, really, we just hoped at the start of today that we would have all of our general classification contenders still there and still in contention, so we can breathe a sigh of relief at this stage.
So far, so good. Yeah, that is exactly what we want. We don't want to see anybody going home on day 2, 3, 4 through a really nasty crash, broken bones, etc., etc. It was great to see so many of the favourites fairly close together in the time trial yesterday. So at the moment, it's looking brilliant for the fight that's still to come in the mountains, even on the cobblestone sections, etc., on stage 5. But yeah, Pogačar, obviously caught up with a crash of some sort, had that double puncture, but he still sits in 3rd place overall. I commented on it today during commentary, but such a difference between the way that UAE went about things today and Pogačar himself versus Jumbo-Visma and Wout van Aert, Primož Roglic and Jonas Vingegaard. They were at the front almost the entire day. I mean, that took an enormous level of concentration and, of course, energy expenditure. And I just wonder whether that's going to start adding up for them over the course of 3 weeks, compared to Pogačar, when you just saw him sometimes float to the front, one teammate in front of him, the rest of them just...
Not even sometimes.
Yeah,
after that sprint today, just on his own, right towards the front, just cruising around and doing his thing. I mean, we spoke about at the start of the show, didn't we, how good he is at just putting himself in that position, and he's not worried about where his teammates are. He lets his teammates worry about where he is. He knows where to put himself. Let the team worry about where he is, get around him, rather than wait for someone else to do it. Because it's like a little bit like Sagan, right? He can put himself in the right position, always. He doesn't really need help. What he needs is the team to keep up with him, and it's the same with Pogačar. Let the team come to you. Don't wait for the team.
So are we trying to say that it could be a bit of a disadvantage to have such a strong team, Robbie, who're doing all that work in the front?
It can
it's
be.
Flipping it on its head, isn't it?
It's an advantage to have so many strong riders, but the way that you use them, and it seems like they're unnecessarily using energy and wearing themselves out with no result. They're not getting any advantage from doing that compared to Tadej Pogačar, who's using one guy, sometimes not even. And the recipe has worked for him 2 years in a row. And everybody believes you're going to do it again. And it's like the others aren't learning those lessons. They're stuck in their ways of doing it like they've always done it. But it doesn't work against Pogačar.
I do like how we tend to take whoever is winning as the winning recipe. But basically, they're just better. Let's have a little look then at the general classification at the end of stage 2. As we said, Wout van Aert is currently in the yellow jersey. I think he's got 1 second at the moment, doesn't he, over Yves Lampaert. There we go. Pogačar now on 8 seconds. And a lot of that behind then is the hangover, if you like, of stage 1's time trial. But Vingegaard on 16 seconds of a deficit. Primož Roglic on 17. So we're looking then ahead to yet another sprint day tomorrow. And one man to look out for will be Lotto Soudal sprinter Caleb Ewan, a man with a point to prove after a disappointing Giro.
Obviously, as a sprinter, you want to win as much as possible, and that's where you get your confidence from. So coming out of the Giro with no win wasn't ideal, but the Champs-Élysées is the one that I've been probably most nervous for when I've got to the start. It's just the biggest one. It's the one that everyone wants to win.
Caleb Ewan from absolutely nowhere makes the steal. It was him versus Groenewegen on the line.
You know, I just want to win as much as possible. But yeah, you know, I think at least the stage win, and then everything else after that's a bonus. Yeah, hope to win more than that, but we'll see.
Well, as we say, it will be another sprint stage tomorrow, but a very different one to today. Let's cross over to Hannah and Brad, who've been looking ahead to stage 3.
So, Bradley, it was hectic sprint there, very, very stressful for stage 2. We're looking at very much the same for tomorrow's stage, potentially ending in a bunch finish from Weiler to Sonborg. Talk us through that stage, 182 kilometres.
Very similar to today. There's a pattern to the race now. We've got a clear sort of leader in the race, if you like. We've got a clear fastest man in the race now in Fabio Jacobson and Quick-Step Alpha Vinyl, who have now dominated the race this opening weekend. It's Sunday and tomorrow in Denmark. The crowds are going to be out in force, maybe more than today they've been talking about. And hopefully the weather stays good as well. It's just going to be another amazing day in Denmark.
It certainly will, and I think for those Danish riders, they must have goosebumps for the amount of people that are lining the streets. So 5.8 million people live in Denmark, and I think all of them were out today, and I'm sure they're going to move to tomorrow's stage as well.
Definitely.
It's a special moment, isn't it, for those riders?
It is. I mean, the Tour de France has never been this far north, so it's... I witnessed it firsthand on the bike today. There was nowhere to stop on the roadside just to get a drink of water or something like that. It was 5 or 6 deep the whole way round, and it was quite a spectacle, really. It reminded me of the scenes of London some 15 years ago in 2007 when the Tour started there.
And talking of the stage tomorrow, a few of the climbs that will feature are used in the Tour of Denmark. Also looking to be a head crosswind as well. How will that affect, and also the riders knowing those climbs as well?
Well, it's going to be twist and turny as ever. I mean, even though it shows it's pretty straight on the map, there's never really a straight road in Denmark. You're always going left and right, like today, and then the road sort of bends a little bit. So that wind is constantly changing direction. There's nervousness with the crowds coming onto the road, filtering onto the road. It's hectic as it was today, and we saw the crashes today. Tomorrow we'll just be even more nervous.
Bradley, thanks very much for your insight for stage 3, and we'll take a look at what happens tomorrow.
Thanks, guys. Well, 2 stages down, 2 wins for Quick-Step so far. What are we expecting tomorrow, Adam? We haven't given a chance to let you know the finishing order of today. We had Jacobsen, Van Aert, Pedersen, Danny van Poppel, Philipsen, then Sagan. Groenewegen was 8th. Caleb Ewan was 13th. What does that tell us about anybody's chances tomorrow?
There's a few guys, Caleb Ewan especially, who's right up there until the finish. Same with Groenewegen almost. They just knew they weren't going to win, so they sat up straight away. Tomorrow... It's kind of like a reduced Amstel Gold. They're always up and down, they're always left and right. So it's going to be fast, it's going to be technical. Staying at the front is going to be very important. But for the sprinters, I think it's about saving energy the whole day. So they'll want to just sit in that correct position, not want to be wasting energy, doing extra sprints out of corners, all that kind of stuff. So tomorrow's a day where start to finish, even though there's not a lot of action happening, you've got to save as much energy as you can throughout the whole day. So I still think it'll be a sprint. But it's going to be I think it's going to be a hard day. I think there's a lot of riders, and it's the Tour de France these days. When you look on paper, you say this is going to be a sprint, but we all know it's the Tour de France. Things might change. Van der Poel might do a Van der Poel.
There'll be so much pressure on those sprint teams. I said it this morning, but we've literally got 3 sprint stages out of the first 12 or 13 stages of this race. So they've had 1. They've got 2 potentially tomorrow and after the rest day on Tuesday. So the pressure's going to mount. If Jacobson takes another one tomorrow, or whoever takes it really, there's going to be a huge amount of pressure on those that haven't yet got themselves off the mark with a stage win.
I know it's always tense in the first week of the Tour de France, but will it be as nervy as today, Robbie?
Probably even more nervy. It's technical, it's tricky, it's more up and down, more turns. It will be a sprint. Fabio Jacobson is a man to beat. He's got the best sprint lead-out train. They had their problems today with crashes, still made it happen. He's the man to beat, but there's others. The frustration will be at all-time high levels after today, and they'll have a point to prove. So it'll be another ding-dong battle. Yeah, you understand frustration after today, Robbie, and a point to prove, because let's look at our own standings after our predictions have left you with... We've got 6 points. We still got to get your picture up there, but you've made it onto the scoreboard, so well done. Here I come. Here I come.
I've dropped back, unfortunately. Adam in second. Dan taking in early. Unlikely lead, shall we say. Anything can and will happen in the Tour de France, boys.
They'll lock handlebars and go down, you watch.
Be grabbing at helmets and all sorts by the end of tomorrow. Anyway, 2 dramatic stages in Denmark. I've got this Tour de France off to a fascinating start. There's one more to come before the race heads to France. And we're back at 11:45 in the morning for stage 3, which on paper at least looks like being one for the sprinters, as we say. Then with a travel day in the Giro D'Italia done tomorrow, you've got a choice of cycling discipline on our digital platforms. The BMX Freestyle World Cup live from Brussels. Men's and women's events coverage starts at 11 a.m. UK time on Discovery Plus and GCN Plus for us. So we're off to take a deep sigh of relief after all that tension today. We do have one more day left in Denmark, but barely even started with the drama of week one. Join us for more fun tomorrow, won't you? We'll see you then.
Relaxed party atmosphere for the time being, but things are about to change today. It's going to get a bit brutal. 3 away, is that the lockdown? No surprise that we're seeing some early hit-and-hovers.
Magnus Cort Nielsen will be the first king of the mountains. We're about to turn off the road, head onto the bridge. The party has started. Oh, and a huge pile up behind. Juan Fernando through the centre. On the left-hand side, it is Fabio Jacobson. And the comeback is complete.